Hello, and welcome to the Movie Universe. I'm your host, Movie Fan. Today, I'm doing a special video segment that I like to call Dare to Compare. It's always been inevitable that sooner or later we're going to compare videos together. Because, I've compared the old and the new, the remake and the original a few times. But, in this case, I'm going to compare Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. I got my Power Rangers t-shirt on, so I am more than ready. Now, I know, these have been compared before, but there's one thing that has never really been compared too much to either games. Everyone will talk about, which is more fun, which one has better graphics, which one kicks butt a lot better. But none of them ever cover one subject. Which game is more true to the series? Let's pop these babies in and give it a try. By the end, we'll find out which one is more accurate to the series.
I absolutely love playing this game. I love being able to beat up all those putties and fight all the monsters. And not to mention, the graphics are superb for this. You can actually tell who is who with this game. There's only really two complaints I have about the graphics for this game. First off, when you play as Zack, he has a very ghastly, weird smile on his face. I don't know if they had some kind of programming trouble or what, but for some reason, he looks like this. The second problem that I have to address is the most general. Every one of the Rangers, when they morph, they look just like Red Ranger, only with different colors. You can tell, believe me, just take a look. You see, every one of them's just like the Red Ranger. And another thing, if you think about it, it's also kind of weird because if you play as Trini or Kimberly, all of a sudden they go from beautiful girls to muscular, manly men, which is very creepy. However, playing this game, it is actually quite true to the series because you start off Jason, Billy, Trini, Zack, or Kimberly. And when you first choose your Power Ranger, you get to play as them out of costume, which is straight out of the series because as we all remember, first they would be around minding their own business, then all of a sudden the putties would show up, so the Power Rangers have to take care of the putties. And when you fight, you can actually see individual personalities in their fighting styles. Jason looks real tough. Billy kind of hits them like a coward. Of course, Kimberly, when she fights a little girly, like she slaps her opponents, which is pretty cool. You go around fighting putties, and then eventually you come to the monster. Then you morph. And when you morph, you get to use your weapons. That's right, you get to use the weapons. And each one of them have their own little individual tricks. For instance, Kimberly can shoot her bow, Billy can do a spin technique with his lance. Jason, Trini, and Zack, however, can only just do a big downward chop. And believe it or not, you can actually do those abilities just by holding up on the D-pad and just pushing the Y button. And pretty much the rest of the game goes just like this. You go around, you fight putties out of costume, then you morph, then you fight more putties, then you fight the monster at the very end. But of course, Power Rangers just wouldn't be Power Rangers without a Megazord battle. But before you fight, you actually get to see Megazord come together. Which pretty much all that happens is you see the Rangers show up on the screen, you see their Zords in the background, and of course you hear that awesome theme song. And that's it. First round with Megazord, you fight against the Hatchosaurus. After you beat him, you get to fight Cyclopsis. And when the end credits roll by, you see them just riding down the street in a car, and they're having a good time at the youth center. Except for the car, that is straight out of the series, because they were always hanging around at the youth center.
I love playing this game. It gives me hours of enjoyment, and, I just love kicking butt all over the place. But there is one problem. There is no Green Ranger anywhere in this game. He isn't unlockable, you don't verse him, or nothing. So that's a pretty big problem because I love Green Ranger, and there's millions of Green Ranger fans out there. So for many of them, this was probably a disappointment. But let's move on to the next game before we blow the whistle just yet.
Playing the Sega Genesis, it's a little more different. In fact, everyone describes this as being like Street Fighter, and I could see why, because all it is a one-on-one battle with you as one of the Power Rangers, and you're fighting one of the monsters. The graphics are good, but there's still one major flaw in this. Pretty much every one of the Rangers is templated after Red Ranger, just like in the Super Nintendo version. There's only two that really stand out. And that would be Pink Ranger, who actually does look like Pink Ranger, and of course Green Ranger. That's right, Green Ranger is in this. But Green Ranger 2 looks a lot like Red Ranger. But if you take a good look at their masks in the series, they didn't look too much different in the first place. The only difference is the colors and, well, Green Ranger had a shield. So it's acceptable. But why are we still on this trend that every one of them is templated after Red Ranger? Getting past that is easy, but there's one major problem. The game is really difficult to play. In fact, if you have it on level 3 or 4, you're going to have a hell of a time playing this. I'm not kidding. In fact, I end up lowering the bar a little, which ends up becoming a bigger problem because, ironically, if you lower the bar to 1 or 2, besides them being weaker, they don't even really fight back. And where's the fun in that? I mean, what's the point of fighting a monster if he's not going to fight back? What I really don't like about playing this game on the Sega Genesis is the fact that if you want to use the weapons, it's really hard to try to get them out. They even have their lasers, which the Super Nintendo game never had, but you can hardly get a hold of them. And even if I do get a hold of them, I don't know how I did it. From what I could tell, you have to use a series of combinations, a lot like in Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, but I suck at doing those, so I can't do it. Which is totally unfair because the Green Ranger has all kinds of tricks up his sleeve, and the monsters have some incredible powers too. And because they get to use their special weapons, and I can't, I'm getting my butt kicked. But if you by some miracle manage to beat the monster, he grows and you get to climb in the Megazord. To which you have a very awesome graphic of Megazord in the tank mode, and then he becomes Megazord, to which you get to fight. I get to use the sword and do all kinds of things. I know there's a few more tricks, but again, I don't know how to do it. However, I do okay as is, because I get to use the sword, I get to use this cool jump kick, which can be a real double-edged sword, because sometimes it seems to give the enemy time to recover and strike back at me faster. After I beat the first monster, I fight the evil Green Ranger. After I beat him, I fight the mighty Dragon Zord. And after I defeat the Dragon Zord, I get Green Ranger. And now he's a playable character, and I can choose him whenever I please. And because I love Green Ranger and the Dragon Zord so much, I usually end up playing as him. I fight a few more monsters, even Goldar, then eventually we get to fight Cyclopsis right by Rita's moon base. The game does have its good points. For instance, I do enjoy the graphics where you get these cutscenes in between everything, because you got the tank mode and Megazord becoming Megazord, and you have Dragon Zord coming out of the ocean, which is really awesome to see. But the biggest drawback is how difficult it is and how hard it is to do those moves. Not to mention, it doesn't really feel like I'm playing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers here. It feels more like I'm playing Zyuranger, which is what the series really was in Japan.
Who's the best? Well, let's see. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Super Nintendo has great action, it has great graphics. In fact, honestly, I think these graphics are even better than the Sega Genesis version. I know a lot of people are going to say otherwise, but that's the way I feel about it. But also, most importantly, this feels like the series, because, as I said before, you get to fight out of costume as any one of the Rangers, minus Green Ranger because he isn't in it. and you beat up putties, which is straight out of the series. And when you're getting ready to fight a monster, you morph, and of course you fight some more putties, and you fight the monster. And even better yet, you get to use your weapons. Whereas for the Sega Genesis version, well, like everybody complains about, it's basically like Street Fighter, and it's relentlessly difficult. And to make matters worse, to use the weapons, you have to go through a lot to try to use anything. And even though it does try to follow the story just slightly, you got the whole Green Ranger thing, but even though it has Green Ranger, I gotta give it to Super Nintendo, because this one feels like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It is true to the series. Here, you're just in costume and you're fighting a monster, or Green Ranger. Sure, you do get to fight as Megazord a lot more often, and even the Dragon Zord, but this doesn't feel like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This feels more like Super Sentai's Zyuranger. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with that, it's just that, for me, it's American version of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers any day over Super Sentai. No offense, guys. You paved the way, you made it possible for us to get a hold of it. But unfortunately, Super Sentai, not for me. Mighty Morphin, all the way. So, the winner is Super Nintendo. However, I'm not done yet, because not only was there a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, there was also one for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. Tune in next week, and we will cover that. This is Movie Fan, signing off.